champ Antoine Walker and WNBA champ Swin cash to get us started. It takes a village.
What did your girl Beyonce say? Upgrade me? Okay, this is what I did. Okay.
We got a big show, a dose of basketball, a dose of football. The Cowboys shoring up their defensive line. Huge injury to the front runner for MVP in the NBA, but we kick things off with the Philadelphia 76ers. Big win for them at home last night over the Nets, thanks in very large part to a big night out of Joel Embiid. 39 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals in only 28 minutes of play. Boy, imagine if he played 29. Sixers will take the win over a team they could very well face in the playoffs. After the game, Joel Embiid said, "We're trying to win a championship." See, we talk about Joel Embiid a lot, but coming down this stretch here, what's the most impressive part of Embiid's game?
Well, I think it's very impressive because he was injured at the All-Star break, the wear and tear. They gave him a break. He missed 8 games there. In those games, they were 4-4. So I think in coming back for the stretch drive, and Philadelphia's done a great job. They got a lot of criticism as far as the guys who they drafted being injured, but how they nursed him back, because I believe that he's beyond having that injury bug being on him. But there are certain times, regardless of what your resume is, that you need to be able to give a guy a break. And for a young player like himself to be like, no, I'm not going to force myself to be out there, the organization to be on top of that, and to give him the type of rest that he could finish with the type of force that you need, a big 5, they are a rarity for a big man to be able to operate not only inside the paint, but be able to bring you out to the 3-point line. I believe he's a breath of fresh air, not only on the court, but off the court. I believe he's going to be the face of the NBA because of his personality, because of his overall game, and the surrounding pieces that they've put around him. It seems like the Jimmy Butler, the trade is working. Tobias Harris, it's working. So those things collectively, I could say after that 8-game break, how he is going to finish the regular season has been very impressive to me.
Yeah, and Antoine, you know this as much as anybody. In this new NBA, we hear load management. Everybody has load management, whether it's Embiid, whether you're going up to Toronto and what they've been doing there with Kawhi. But for Embiid, I think they've done it right, Chris. I think they have taken their time. They made sure that he gives them maximum effort, but lower minutes. And when he comes out and plays, you get dominating for performance like he did tonight. But keep this in mind, guys. His performance, like Embiid's 25. Like what we're seeing right now, the numbers he's putting up, it's the new era of the NBA where the 5s can step out. They can shoot the 3. They can be down low. But I think he's right. They're going for a championship this year. I remember seeing Elton Brand before the trades happened and just saying, you know, what's going on with the team? What are you guys thinking about? And I knew something was going to happen, but getting Tobias Harris, I think, is that extra piece that can put them in position to get through this I think
when you look at last night, is the way they have to play. I think that's more important. I know Joel Embiid played terrific, but the Sixers to win the championship, and I love the fact that he talked about we're trying to win a championship, but they got to play inside the out. And you don't see that a lot with a lot of NBA teams. You got to feature him. He's got to be the guy getting 20, 25 shots a night. Then everybody else kind of piece it together. You got a great point guard, I think, in Ben Simmons, but then Jimmy Butler, I think, has finally fit his role. Let me defend. Let me be the guy that takes the shots late in the game. In the game, we all know what J.J. Redick can do from the 3-point line. And then Tobias Harris gives us their stability. But the one thing about the Sixers, I would wish they come out and put one of those guys in starting lineup, take them out the lineup early so you can get that bench better. You have to get that bench a lot better come playoff time. But they got all the ingredients and pieces. But if they play the way they played last night, everybody getting double-digit shots, but Embiid being the feature, you know, no because how far this team can go, because they got the second best starting 5 in the league behind Golden State.
Yeah, nice.
But do you think they rely on Joel Embiid almost to their detriment? I mean, do you think that this team lives and dies by the way Joel Embiid plays every night? And will that hold them back come the playoffs?
Well, I think as an organization, when you have a player like him, you need to establish something. And the foundation of their basketball should be Joel Embiid. And it's just not because he's a 7-footer. It's because of his skill set. I believe he also is a very effective leader, man. He's very personable. You see him always talking on the court to the other players. So I don't think you can rely on a guy who has a complete game. He's got an intermediate game. He can pull up. You talked about earlier about being able to come out to the 3-point line. And we know that he has a devastating inside game. So I don't think, and if you look at the skill set of the other guys around him, what they do, Jimmy Butler, like, he is better. First 3 quarters, being a defender, being a slasher, and then at the end of the game, after you fed Joel Embiid, you've gotten all these fouls on him. on the opposition. Then you allow Jimmy Butler to be able to close them out. So no, Jenna, I believe that everything starts and ends with Joel Embiid. And I believe that was part of their struggle earlier, trying to find identity, what we're going to do. Let's pump it into the paint, allow the big man to go to work. That's the way the NBA used to be. Man, we're going to give it to the big man, let him work, and then everyone else get theirs off of that.
Well, he's a star player, so you have to go through him first. And I think that's rightfully so. He had 6 assists last night. 4 of those assists were to Ben Simmons, because they have guys that are used to playing without the ball. Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, they don't need the ball in their hand consistently to be able to produce. And so Embiid is a really good passer to be a big man, and that's what's happening. Even at Golden State, you see Boogie Cousins, a great guy with big hands. Draymond Green, another big that has great hands. That's where the NBA is right now, and Embiid has all the tools that you have to go through him, and then you feed the other guys off that.
And they're good enough, too, just to add to that, is that we know they're probably not going to finish with the 1st or 2nd seed. But to get at the 3rd seed, it's a good spot for them. They got good home crowd, have some home court advantage. They're going to play great in Philly. But you got to add, only thing I worry about them is Brent Brown making the proper adjustments that's needed throughout the playoffs. We saw some mistakes last year in the playoffs.
Yes.
Making the right adjustments to make sure that they don't beat themselves, because they're talented enough to go as far as they want to go in the Eastern Conference.
So that's an interesting point. What I was going to ask you, Swin, if they don't make it to the end of the Eastern Conference, what will be the reason why? I mean, what will you point to and say, well, that's where their demise was with this team that Antoine, you think is the best team in the East?
I think Antoine made a good point. I think right now, I think the organization, the ownership has went all in on this team. This team will not be the same team next year. I would be surprised
starting five.
If this starting 5 is the same starting 5 next year. They're going to have to sign some guys. I don't know if Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris will both be there, but I will say this: if they beat themselves, and then also the bench. I like Boban to be on their bench. I think he's going to add some size on the inside, and that trade with Tobias Harris is going to be good for them. But then you're going to need other guys. You're going to need Scott to come out. You're going to need also Johnson. Those guys to not only defend, but to make open shots. Because if I'm scheming in a 7-game series, I'm going to take some things away. Who are the other guys that are going to step up, be role players to have those moments?
Well, we talk about, and you bring this up all the time, Ben Simmons has to be one of those guys. But he talks about his limitations all the time shooting. How much are they going to need a little bit more from Ben Simmons in that regard?
Well, I think he has to play smart. He has some deficiencies shooting the basketball, so they know that they're going to have to put him in position where he can be effective. That may be him posting up a little bit more, playing off his skill set, which is a guy that can slash, cut to the basket, finish around the basket. But I'm not worried about Ben. I think last year taught him a lot. Understand that they're going to sag. He's going to be the weak link on the offensive end. But they also can go small, too, and play another guy. You know, obviously, Ben Simmons is your all-star, but they have some other pieces now. She talked about the bench. You can bring in a T.J. McConnell, a guy who can make some shots, who can stretch the defense a little bit. So they have all the ingredients there to be a great team. It's going to be up to them. They're going to beat themselves. And just to add to that, I think it is championship or bust, or this roster changes immediately in the offseason.
No, Jenna, you make a great point. If you're talking about Philadelphia, why might they not get there? Why aren't they Eastern Conference champions? There's a couple of things. Ben Simmons, out of 505 shots this season, only 13 outside the painted area that he's been able to make. So in the playoffs, we saw last year, people sagging off of him. I believe it's very important, too, for Brett Brown to be able to get them in sets, especially early in the game. Don't try to run a half-court offense. Get him going with pace, because it's easier before the defense sets up that he can get a better look than in a half-court defense. And on the defensive side of things, we know Philadelphia is a suffocating defense. But how can they hide J.J. Redick? Because teams try to find him out, try to find that matchup in there. We know he's a knockdown shooter, but a deficiency on the defensive side. So Ben Simmons shooting the basketball, shooting it from any type of distance, or how's he going to generate offense before he gets impatient? And J.J. Redick trying to hide him on the defensive side.
Just so I'm clear, we have to hide J.J. Redick on defense and hide Ben Simmons on offense. My kids would be amazing at putting this 76ers. If this is about hide and seek, call my kids. They'll put this.
Yeah, they might be professional, but they got deficiencies.
Swin and Cash, we'll see you guys. Swin and Cash, Swin and Antoine. This is my problem when I give people nicknames. We'll see you guys a little bit later on. Take a break. Coming up, hey, why does Antonio Brown have the rest of the league nervous? That's next on FS1, and you can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. NBA champ Antoine Walker and WNBA champ Swin Cash. To get us started, it takes a village.
Would your
to
girl
replace
Beyonce
Nick.
say upgrade me? Okay, this is what I did. Okay?
We got a big show, a dose of basketball, a dose of football. The Cowboys shoring up their defensive line. Huge injury to the front runner for MVP in the NBA, but we kick things